Hi everyone, welcome back to Books and Beyond. This week I'm going to find out more about the seedy underbelly of India, and there seems to be a lot to uncover in this because our guest today has written 14 books on this topic. He has captured some of the world's biggest criminals on paper with multiple bestsellers like Dongri to Dubai, Mafia Queens of Mumbai, Black Friday, My Name is Abu Salem, Mumbai Avengers, so many more. Mr. Hussain Zaidi is India's biggest crime writer. So today I'm going to unpack his latest book, Raw Hitman, The Real Story of Agent Lima. And I have to say, sir, I could not put this book down because it's full of goons, politicians, cops, bullets, corruption, and so much more. It's one of the most riveting books that I've read recently. And I kept wondering who is the man who killed the most, two most notorious criminals, right? Or is it Lucky Bisht or is it Agent Lima? Are they both the same person? And what is the real story? So let's find out from Mr. Hussain Zaidi himself. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so sir, because you're one of the most requested guests on this podcast, we have actually crowdsourced fan questions. So here are the top questions that came up, from many people who wrote to us on email, who wrote to us on Instagram, all of that. So the very first question, which we all want to know, is that being an investigative journalist, it has its pros and cons, and I'm sure it has all its dangers involved. So we read that you were actually once kidnapped in Iraq. Please tell us about it. Is this myth or is this fact?
It's one of the craziest stories that I have narrated, and despite 20 years have gone by, but I've still not got over it, or I've not forgotten it, or I've still remember all those details very vividly when I narrated it first. What has happened was in midday, I was doing this crime reporting, and I have been a successful reporter in midday, like getting most of the time page one. I mean, I was writing about corrupt politicians, I was writing about delinquent cops, I was writing about mafia, underworld. So a series of page one stories. So my editor Akar Patel was very happy, and he wanted to offer me a junket. Say, uh, can I send you to some place as a encouragement or as a reward for doing good work consistently? So in those days, journalists were going to Singapore or Switzerland or these kind of fancy destinations. I think the man or the stupid journalist in me was not very enamored by these destinations. I thought I would rather go to a war zone. So I asked Akar, okay, can he send me to Iraq? He just looked at me with his eyes wide, as if he has seen the biggest fool on this earth to suggest this kind of place. Because Iraq was Saddam was just deposed, and the country was still going through the struggles of becoming normal. And this stupid journalist is now wanting to go to the war zone. So I told him, Akar, I've seen so much of mafia, organized crime, but I've never seen a war-torn country. I mean, can you not allow me to go there? And so he kind of very reluctantly and under intense request and repeated request said that if I can. So then he sent me to Iraq. Now in Iraq, when I went there, so because my specialization was crime journalism, I was trying to look for those kind of intriguing stories which my readers would like. So even from Iraq, I dominated page one for 3 days in a row. I kind of survived a bomb blast in Najaf, and then which was meant for some cleric there because that was an infighting between two groups. And then I went and reported about a bodyguard of Saddam who said that Saddam had 27 palaces, he had so many lookalikes, and he was so brutal, so violent, and he was killing so many people, such a despotic tyrant. And then I interviewed his bodyguard who was on the run and hiding from the forces. Also, in those days, because we realized that Babri Masjid and Ram Janambhoomi issue was so fresh, so I came across a Gurdwara right in the middle of the railway tracks of Baghdad, and I thought that in my country they are fighting for one structure who is going to have that, while in Iraq non-Muslim, see, Gurdwara is a non-Muslim structure right there, and this country, instead of demolishing it, has ensured that the railway tracks just go across it, and this place remained there. So it was a Gurdwara which was built by Sikh soldiers at the time of Second World War. So I kind of did all those stories in 3, 4 days in a row. But there came a time that I started feeling the famine of stories. See, I had no local contacts in Iraq. There was nobody to help me. So I started looking for some local contact. I said, who is the chief of thieves here? Who is the big guy? Because we all have heard about Thief of Baghdad. So I thought, yeah, there is a story like I've grown up on this Thief of Baghdad story. I don't know if you know, Kabir Bedi is acted as a hero in his Hollywood movie. And there was also like other stories which were made in. So I thought this must be a legendary thing. I must go and meet this thief of Baghdad. I should look for some. I was not getting anyone. And one fine day, suddenly, I feel when I was standing in that souk is a marketplace. So I'm standing in that place. I feel a very hard, cold thing on my ribs. And somebody in a gruff voice says, sit in the car. I look at him and then I feel the gun. And the man looked, very nervous and very angry. If at all I'm going to resist, I'm going to get shot dead right there. And then I was, forcibly taken into a place and, made to plonk on a chair where my blindfold was removed. So when you look around, you see a lot of gunmen surrounding you. I mean, I took pride in my being a very brave guy. I mean, that I was a person who was having enough courage to face this world. But seeing so many guns pointed at you when it's not even a film shooting is really like getting life out of you. I somehow tried to keep my courage together and I waited. For the chief to come because the chair in front of me was empty. And suddenly a man walks in, and I see he has a long hair, and he has no mustache, and he has no beard. And until then in Iraq, when I was meeting all these people, I realized that they have beard, they have mustache, and they have too much of foliage on their face. This clean-shaven man with the long hair till his shoulder was quite a surprise packet for me. Well, I kind of kept quiet until he asked me a question. Are you Pakistani? So, Arabic does not have per. They don't have the pronunciation of per
Yes.
and cha. They have to make do with other alphabets to pronounce whatever. So he said, are you Pakistani? I said, no, I'm not Pakistani. I am Hindi. So Pakistani, I heard, is not having very good reputation in Iraq. I don't know why, whatever the reason is. But Indians apparently were held in high esteem in India. They, until then I knew that they were Bollywood freaks. And, when the guy was taking me in the car, in one of my trips, I heard a Mithun Chakravarti disco dancer song, Jimmy, Jimmy, Aja, Aja. In 2003, I'm hearing a song which was like played in India 20 years ago. So I realized that they are big fans of Bollywood. So I said, I'm Hindi. And you will not believe the moment I said I'm Hindi, suddenly his whole demeanor changed. The whole sternness, the gruffness in him changed. He said, oh, you are Hindi. I said, yeah. And then secondly, the next question was, uh, do you know Amisha Bachchan? Amisha Bachchan now, this Kaho Na Pyar Hai was just a recent hit in 2003. And we have seen Amisha Patel, making an entry, becoming a big heroine at that time. So I thought he's mispronouncing her name. I said, no, no, it's not Amisha Bachchan, it's Amisha Patel. I know Amisha Patel. He said, no. He got very angry. How come I don't know? He said, you are Hindi, you don't know Amisha Bachchan. I said, I really don't know Amisha Bachchan. Who is Amisha Bachchan?
I think Amitabh Bachchan. Don't
No,
tell
so
me.
he himself said
Oh.
it. He went inside
Oh.
and he showed me a photograph from movie Shakti. The moment I saw that photograph, I identified this man that he is looking so much like Amitabh Bachchan with clean shaven face and long hair and black shirt. So this is like man is imitating Amitabh Bachchan rather. And I immediately understood, oh, this is Amitabh Bachchan. He was saying Amisha Bachchan. You know that the fear of death, the nervousness that I'm going to be killed here and thrown in some desert, and my wife will become widow. She won't even know it where I've read and where I've been dumped. Suddenly, this thing kind of made me very happy. I saw a known face among so many gunmen, and I said, "Oh, I know him!" Like the joy of, "Oh, I know him," that kind of thing. And he
Yes.
misunderstood my excitement. He thought that I'm saying that he's my big friend. So he said, oh, you're a friend of Amishabh Bachchan. I said, yeah, Amitabh Bachchan. I tried to also, he said, Amitabh Bachchan, like he was trying to pronounce his name properly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then he became friends when he realized he thought that I'm Amitabh Bachchan's friend. And he then said he ordered good food for me. I was really hungry. And I don't know if people have been exposed to that emotion. When they're nervous, when they're close to death, they eat a lot of food. I kind of attacked food and I had food to my heart's content. He was kept on just looking at me and must be wondering that India is like one of those countries which has so many hungry people. Well, so we kind of were chatting and he was discussing. And then he said, okay, see, I was very upset with you before you came here. We thought you were some Pakistani spy who's trying to do something on us. But now, since you're from India and you know Amitabh Bachchan very well, you have to give me a letter in writing that whenever I come to India, you introduce me to him. I said, sure, I will. So I kind of signed all that thing that he has given me. And then he dropped me back to my hotel, and that kind of ended very nicely,
Wow.
happily. So once when I met Mr. Bachchan in one of the gatherings, I told him, sir, I owe you my life. Thank you very much for saving my life. He said, wow, where? I said, sir, in Baghdad, you saved my life. He said, I've never been to Iraq. I said, sir, aapka naam hi kafi hai. I just took your name and my life was like spared. So, well, then he tweeted about the story and
Wow, that is really unbelievable, sir. I mean, it's literally like a scene out of a movie. Like, who would have imagined, right? I can't even imagine what you must have been through. So, me, I actually grew up in the Gulf, so I do understand. When you mentioned the souk is a marketplace,
yeah,
and that they cannot pronounce P, right? So,
yeah,
it's Bebsi, and
yeah,
we've always had a laugh about these things. So, I'm very familiar with all these nuances, but definitely I had no clue about how scary
yeah.
things can get. But I'm so happy that Amitabh Bachchan came to the rescue
Yes, yes,
for you. And a lot of our listeners were very curious that is it because there are a lot of rumors that are spread around? They wanted to know. So this
yeah.
is a very fascinating tale. So, and apart from this, you are the one of India's most prolific writers. So many books you've written, like 14 books, and I'm very sure there are more in the pipeline. So what I want to know is, what is the secret to your prolificity? How do you even manage your time?
That's a big problem, actually. When I was a journalist, in Indian Express, there were no crime reporters when I joined. I was the only one. It was much later than Jyoti Day and others joined and they started reporting crime. We all became a team later on. But in the beginning of 1995, towards the end of 1995, I was the only one who was reporting crime at that time. And there was a lot of pressure for me to do stories. So I was the only one who was covering Mumbai, Navi Mumbai, Thane, and Raigad. So every day we were producing a lot of stories. Now, sometimes now it becomes a habit for you to write so much. Sometimes, unless you don't write and don't cover so much, you don't feel satisfied so much. So it's like a jogger who will not go jogging for 5 kilometers. He will, feel down. He'll feel depressed. Oh, today I've not gone jogging for 5. So for others, it might look like a very strenuous task that, oh, 5 kilometers, kaun walk bhi karega. But for joggers, like, it's fun. Anytime you can just, get his shoes and start running. So because I've been writing so much since those days, and I'll tell you that journalists as a breed are very lazy people. I mean, there are people who sometimes write just once in a month, or if they are very hardworking people, maybe once in a week, at max twice a week. In my case, my boss, Sai Suresh Sivswamy, made me work so much that I was like, I rose to the challenge. He was a nice guy. He never humiliated or embarrassed me, but he kind of always pushed me in a very positive way. So I was trying to score one byline story every day, which was kind of rare thing in those days. So I was newly married in 1995. I had to get home. I was living in Thane, and my office at Express Towers was in Nariman Point. So when people are leaving home, I mean, leaving office at 11:30, when the pages are getting made, at 11:30, I will be calling Joint Commissioner of Crime saying, sir, hello, can you give me a front page for tomorrow? He said, oh, Hussain, I've just shared one good story with you today. And it's 11:30, I want to sleep. I said, ha, sir, but I want to start working for tomorrow's story. So this was an example I was trying to give you. At 11:30, instead of going home to a newly wedded wife, I was working and I was trying to get more stories for the next day. This kind of thing got embedded into my system in such a way that until today, if I don't write that much, until I don't work that much, I don't produce some content until that time, I will not get a runner's high or I will not get endorphins in my system.
Wow, really. And I could totally relate to the commute, sir, because our, bound office is in Nariman Point and I live in Borivali. So it takes me 4 hours to travel and I, try to make the most of it. I read, I write, whatever I can do.
Yeah.
And it's really commendable. I mean, your work ethic as a journalist, I think it's what seeps into your writing as well. So that's really, really inspiring.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
so apart from this, sir, we know that you've profiled some of the biggest mafia leaders in history, right? So I want to know who has been the most fascinating personality that you have met in real life and why.
See, honestly speaking, I don't have much respect for any of them. For me, they are just subjects. They are just, I mean, they're just people whom I write about because I was a reporter, I was a journalist. So to say that I was fascinated by them will be giving them a lot of respect. I can say who was the weirdest, or I would say that who was someone
Yes,
was most
sure.
despicable. I mean, I can say
Yeah.
those things. But fascination is a positive term. I won't say that criminals fascinate me. I despise them to from the core of my heart. So all those people who perpetrate violence and kill human beings, they are very, very bad people, abominable, obnoxious people. So I can maybe tell you a couple of stories of obnoxious people. There was this guy Firoz Konkani. Firoz Konkani, his name was Firoz Sarguro. He became a killer at age 16. Now, we all have been through this life, these challenges, where at 16, a youngster is trying to be in college, trying to study hard, trying to make a mark for himself in academic world. Those who are good for nothings, they will go and chase girls and, they'll try to be, standing on the road and somewhere trying to be some kind of Romeo Giri, those kind of things they will do. This man, Firoz, was neither of that. He was nor inclined in study, neither inclined to study nor looking after girls. At age 16, he started working as a watchman in some place, and because of some very minor tiff, he ended up killing one person. So he became a killer at age 16. And from there on, he killed several people. So before that, he had killed two Mathadi workers, and he's the man who started the second round of riots in Mumbai in January 1993. So, in December, after a first round of riots, there was a lull in the communal riots in Mumbai. But this man kind of, because he was living in Dongri, yeah, he went out and killed two Mathadi workers. He slit their throats. And when the next day morning, two Mathadi workers' dead body was found, there was the second round of rioting between Muslims and Shiv Sena at that time. So it was Firoz Konkri who started this. So I was coming back to his this profile that after killing this man, he got hired by Chote Shakil and he ended up killing 16 more people. So by the time he was 19-year-old, he had killed 17 people. And like for him, like killing was no big deal. My point is that I found it to be very weird for a man to be this, totally screwed up in head. Chota Shakil, because he started Chota Shakil liking him very much, he started giving him very tough job. For example, MLA Ramdas Naik, who was a BJP leader, Firoz Konkani killed him in Bandra. So that was one of the most sensational, high-profile killing that Firoz Konkani had killed. So this was the man who also managed to, when he was in jail, he was brought to JJ hospital for some medical checkup. He escaped from there and he wanted he reached Pakistan. He wanted to replace Chota Shakil, or he wanted to become a Don from Pakistan. But then he was killed by Shakil. They said that you can't, you're good as a foot soldier. Don't try to become the leader. So he was killed by Chota Shakil in some Karachi market. So at a very young age, I think he got killed when he was
My
barely
God.
25, 26. So that is one of the weirdest characters that I found in my.
Really? Yeah.
And
And
he's
that too
there.
at
One of the
age
books that I've
16.
written, Dirty Dozen. So Dirty
Yeah.
Dozen is a book which I have profiled 12 very violent kind of killers. So Firoz Konkani is among one of those.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay, because I was just going to ask you, sir, because out of all the books that you've written, which was the most challenging? Was it this? I mean, because I can only imagine how disturbed anyone could be, the frame, the mindset for actually profiling the most notorious criminal. So was that the most challenging or was it any other book?
I don't know whether this is the right analogy, but for me, that I realize that for surgeons, initially it is difficult for them to, put a scalpel, cut someone's body, see so much of blood, and handle the organs, vital organs of people. But after a point, it becomes such a routine thing for them that they have a felicity in handling these things. Doing surgery is like a routine thing for them. So initially, for me, it was challenging, but after a point, I thought that I detach myself. I kind of disassociate myself from whatever was happening, and I was writing about them. So it doesn't do anything to me psychologically when I write about them. But to answer your question, I would say that my most challenging book was Dongri to Dubai. That was the book that took longest. It took 7 years for me to write, and finally I realized that if I'll not stop writing and conclude the book here, this will keep on going because Dawood was still alive at that time and there were a lot of things that were still happening. Mafia was on the front pages. So I thought I have to stop here. I have to just now finish the book and submit the manuscript and be done with it. But whatever you see, It took 7 years of research, hard work, while I was doing the daily reporting as well.
Wow, yeah, that is a lot. Yeah, I think 7 years is definitely out. And just looking at your career, you've written so many books. I can imagine how impatient or frustrated you would have got
Yes,
by the
yes,
end.
I was there.
So yeah. So I want to know more about your process. So because you are, an investigative crime reporter, and on this podcast, we've also spoken to others. Most recently we've spoken to Srinath Rao, who's written the book Meow Meow, the story about Baby Patankar. And
Yeah.
there are basically so many crime reporters, right? So we want to know, what makes you stand out? What makes you sort of get an edge over the others in your career in general? What is it that you think that you have brought to the table that other crime investigators have not?
See, I won't try to denigrate the work of my fellow journalists. They all are excellent and fabulous professionals. I think in my case, what happened was that I got the first mover advantage. I just got pure lucky. In 1995, I said that in those days, Indian Express, I started off with Express, and JD joined Indian Express in 1996. So at that time, as that there were not very many people who were doing the credible crime reporting. See, I tell you what, in crime journalism, it is very easy to speculate. It's very easy to kite flying. It's very easy to like write anything because according to one of the editors in Express, D.N. Murthy, you write any crap about underworld and they will not send a press release or a legal notice to you claiming, give you a rejoinder that your story is false. So there were a lot of people who were doing that. I mean, I can tell you that such speculation had been rife at that time that they were getting away with it. Now, and those days, I was not trained as a crime journalist. My boss, when he hired me, I was harboring the ambition of becoming a good education reporter. Because, all journalists, when they're naive, they think that they will change the world. They'll bring the reformation in this world. They will do this, they will do that. So when I walked into Indian Express office, I thought I'll become an education reporter. There are so many evils in the society, in the education. I want to change the world. Or I will cover civic beat, civic corporation, BMC, where there are so many Gotala scams happening. And if not, then maybe politics. Crime was never on my radar. But Mr. Sivswamy, he said we have only one, slot vacant, and that is for crime journalism. You have got to be a crime journalist. So, because I was so much in love with Indian Express, I joined that paper, and I have, immediately liked Mr. Sivswamy. So I said yes, okay. So I had to be different from in those that breed of crime journalists. So I started, going to the courts, talking to the lawyer, getting the version from the families, going and getting the verification from the cops. So I straight away walked to the Joint Commissioner of Crime. In those days, it was R.S. Sharma, and I used to ask him, and he was like very kind enough to respond, reply, or refuse and deny or not comment. So what was happening then in my stories? It was not speculation or kite flying or just conjecture. It was backed by some solid verification. So there were some documents or there was some version. There are some quotes from people. So that's how I think that people kind of started reading those stories and they thought that this man is more trustworthy than others. And it happened in 95. And then Jyotirmoy Day came. Now, Jyotirmoy was senior to me 15 years. Jyoti was 50 years older to me, but he had intense hunger to learn. So I made him a crime journalist. So now what happened is whenever they say that if you want to know a teacher, his caliber, look at his student. So I always say, if you guys think that JD was a big journalist, then I'm his teacher. That's what I kind of always claim at.
Lovely story, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what I think it happened to you by accident, but then you sort of, there's your passion for these stories and your passion for doing thorough research is what comes across. It doesn't matter what the subject is. So we have two more questions in this crowdsourced section. So one is, see, you're a reporter, you tell the truth, right? And we sometimes we know that when there are facts, when there are stats, it tends to get dry, but your books are just the opposite of that, right? They're entertaining. There's so much happening, it's like watching a movie. So I want to know, sir, to make it accessible, to make it entertaining, is it okay for a writer to embellish the facts, or do you still stay true to the truth and sort of just write it in a way which makes it entertaining?
I'll take objection to the statement of embellishing the facts.
Yes.
You can't embellish a fact. I would say that facts are always interesting. They are always riveting. You don't have to embellish the facts. See, can you decorate the moon? Can you make sun more shining? You can't do that. They are like as beautiful as they are in their all its glory and aura. About this the writing style, I would say in my young days, my father used to tell me stories. And when he used to tell me stories, it was not just ordinary story that okay, the king came and he conquered and he was adding a lot of effects to it. He was adding sound effects, and the king came, and there was fighting, dang, 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 and then suddenly the door opened, down with all those sound effects. So I was like fascinated, and I was imagining when things were he was describing. It was not just a visual pleasure, but for me it was like also audio pleasure. The everything I was like enjoying the whole thing. So I think that I carried that thing in my youth when I was writing stories. Secondly, Vikram Chandra, the famous Vikram Chandra of
Sacred
Sacred
Games.
Games.
Yes.
He was my teacher in storytelling. I had in my early days of writing, when I was a lot of struggle, I used to ask Vikram to help me out about writing. So he's the man who made me an author. He's the man who pushed me to write Black Friday. So a man is a sum total of his teachers, actually, always say. So Mr. Vikram has
Yes.
Chandra has contributed a lot to my growth as a writer. He told me, Hussein, when I was in my initial days, I was trying to be very matter of fact, and I was trying to be very prosaic. He said, Hussein, you are doing the wrong thing. Don't try to, tell the story. Try to show the story. So try to write it, because the words are powerful words. You can be descriptive, you can be graphic while you're writing, and you don't have to use very prosaic language for that. You just to ensure that, imagine as if you're in a room where there is no one but you, and you want to describe this someone on the phone that this is the room and this is what I'm seeing. So through your eyes, the viewers are able to see that room. So do that to readers, and that's how I started paying more attention. So what I would say is that I was not embellishing the facts, but I became more graphic. So I
Yes.
started those minuscule details which were otherwise neglected. I just thought I should also put them in the story, include them, explain, elaborate, those kind of things. So that's the thing. I mean, for example, I'll tell you, in Black Friday, there's a scene where I've written that how Rakesh Mari and his team was searching Tiger Maimon's house for the all full day, and they had not eaten anything at that time. Now, as a Muslim, I know that during fasting, the whole day, at least towards the 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, when it's close to iftar, they have spent 13, 14 hours of hunger and starvation. The hunger is very intense. The thirst is intense. And they just want somehow, to spend another couple of hours and to start eating. I just associated this feeling of fasting on that scene with Rakesh Maria, who was in Tiger Maimon's building, that Muslim area, and how the neighbors invited them for iftari in the evening. So it was like my knowledge of fasting, Ramzan, hunger, intense, Rakesh Maria, his team. So that kind of scene came across well. In fact, even Anurag Kashyap retained that scene of that hungry people in that apartment of Tiger Maimon, and then later on they all are converging and eating together. So I won't say I was embellishing the facts. I was just making it more descriptive, more elaborate.
Correct.
That's it.
Oh, that's a really fascinating example,
Yeah.
sir. Because like you said, you never know where the inspiration comes from, right? You try to make the experience as authentic and as I would say easily consumable for an audience. I really like that. And I think your books are a perfect example of show versus tell. This is something
Yes,
that
yes.
a lot
And
of writers,
I
yeah.
read a poetry somewhere. I'm not able to recall the exact word. He said that
Hmm.
people, when they describe the beauty of a woman, they only look at eyes, they only look at hair, they only look at face. The beauty also means the earring. Also describe the earring of the girl that she is wearing. So that
Yes.
poet said it. I said, now see, it's going beyond this and trying to describe the whole thing. So it's not embellishing the fact. It's trying to have a better description and a more
Yes.
deeper explanation.
Correct, correct. Exactly. It's the same experience, but you're giving us a wholesome experience instead of just a 2D picture of it.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And what I really like, sir, is that you've mentioned that it took practice, it took time to build that craft. I think that's something
Correct.
that's very, very
Yes.
interesting to know because there's this saying, writers are born or writers are made. And at the end of the day, it's all your hard work, it's your persistence
Hmm.
that shows. And so the last question in this section, sir, is that see, we know that there's a lot of content coming out in OTT platforms, films, shows, all of that, right? So, sir, because you have such a good skill with showing, we were wondering, why not aim to be a screenwriter? Why have you always been so loyal to books? Because you've been a writer of books for a very long time. So, is that something that has crossed your mind?
See, screenplay writing, first of all, is a totally different craft. Uh, a screenplay writer works differently, thinks differently, and he has to imagine things and he has to articulate things differently. Now, I mean, I can do that, but most of the time I realize that screenplay writers kind of do a lot of mismatch, or they take the kind of liberties which normally as a journalist we are not like trained to take, or as a non-fiction writers we will loathe to do those things. They will try to blend too many characters into one. They will try to get too many details together just because they wanted that scene to be very powerful, effective. So I mean, it's their craft. Perhaps they have their own compulsion of doing all those things. But for me, as a writer, I cannot, convince myself to take those liberties and try to convey the scene in that manner. So I thought that my core competence, my strength is in writing books as a journalist, and let someone else do the screenplay. So sometimes I also don't read the screenplay. I just dissociate and disconnect. That let them write it, and so for example, if you see Mumbai Mary Jaan, that Amazon Prime series, you will see that there are so many liberties that the screenplay writers have taken, which are different from what is there in the book. So my whole point is that it's better to be a
It's
writer and be happy than to
oh,
be a screenplay writer and then taking
right.
the liberties and at the end of it feel, oh yeah, why?
That's very interesting, and that's really refreshing. So, I'm really happy because I do speak to a lot of writers who say that their one dream is to write a show for Netflix or to just be to have a show out. While I do understand that I've grown up really reading books and loving books, and I do hope that the books sort of stay in that form also for a long time. Yes, as you said, there are people who do adaptations better, so better leave it to them. Okay, so you're finally, so we are here to talk about your book, your most latest book, which is out by Simon and Schuster. So I find the plot itself very interesting. Okay, so just to give our readers, sorry, our listeners some context. So we find that Lakshman or Lucky Bisht, and he was only 16 years old when he joined the special forces, and at such a young age, like he already had a notable career within the Indian army. So and then his entire life got derailed, right, at the age of 23, when he was accused of killing the most notorious criminals, Raju Pargai and Amit Arya in Uttarakhand. And then he was shifted to 11 prisons in a span of 5 years. We can't even
Yes,
imagine what
yes.
what would have he would have gone through, but you've actually chronicled that in your book. So what you've said is, that from being a national hero to becoming a nationally infamous gangster is something that shocked you. So could you please tell us what drew you to the story and how did you approach him?
See, Lucky Singh Bisht was an accidental discovery for me. I was meeting some other producers and they were pitching some stories of intelligence operations to me, which I was not very enamored about. But I was very, skeptical that how are they getting this kind of information? Who's sharing? So I asked them that, how do you get this information? They said we know one R.A.W guy and R.A.W person is given this details of information. So I would think the R.A.W guys are not so accessible to people. They will not be so open and willing to share. What are they talking about? Is it an empty boast or is there some reality to this? So then I said, who was the R.W guy? I want to meet this person. So in my next meeting, they called this guy. Now I was so disappointed to meet Lucky Singh Bisht. He's a short guy. He's dark, short guy, and he's. I thought the R.W guys are normally, I mean, in my mind they were looking different. So I said, "Gee," I said, "This guy." I said, "Okay." So I started asking Lucky, "Tell me about yourself. How are you, RW guy?" So then he started explaining himself that this is what how he got trained, and this is how he went to NSG, and then he was working for RW. And I kept on listening to the story, and I thought, I mean, they are dishing out this story to me, which I'm not really very happy about. Why not write about Lucky's story? Then I told Lucky, can I write a book on you? Will you be okay on your story? He looked at me as if I don't know. He was surprised that someone thinks that his story is worth writing about. He said, yes, sir, why not? So then we had a proper documentation. I asked him to, assign his life rights to me. And then I sat with him several times. Then we sent a team to Haldwani to investigate. Then I cross-checked. I spoke to a lot of people. So a lot of work has gone in that process. But uh, in the course, when we finished the book, Lucky was, mystified at several levels because all said that he's a young guy. And sometimes a young guy does not have his own self-discovery the way someone else, an elder guy, manages to go into the deepest recesses of his mind and kind of get that thing out. So for Lucky, it was like his own self-introduction at that time when he wrote the book. He said, "Sir, ये तो बहुत सी चीजें मुझे भी आपने मुझसे परिचित करा दी हैं." So those kind of things, and I said that I would say that it's one of my most wonderful projects in terms of knowing a human being, seeing a human being, growing with a human being, that kind of person. So 16-year-old
Wow.
coming from a very poor family, becoming a fantabulous killing machine, a commando who can survive in all the adverse conditions, and then how he got treated by the agencies. I thought people should know that.
Right. So actually, so what kept me going throughout the book, honestly, was the suspense, right? Because we want to know, is Lucky Beast Agent Lima? Are they both the same people? And you've sort of done it in a very interesting way where there are parallel chapters, right? So one we follow Agent Lima's journey, then we follow Lucky Beast, and then we keep wondering, are these two different people? Is he being framed? So what made you pick this angle? You could have picked any angle to tell the story. Why this?
Lucky Bisht, after a prolonged trial, has managed to has been acquitted by the court at that time. The trial court has acquitted him. Despite all the testimonies, people have seen that, oh, we have seen him with Raju and we have seen him here, and the people have seen him here and there. But the trial court, despite all their best efforts, could not convict him. However, there were strong evidences that someone like Lucky had killed him. So, like going against the court verdict and saying that Lucky killed him and the court had exonerated him would be bad. It would be legally wrong thing to do. At the same time, there is a very strong evidence that someone of similar height, similar behavior, similar facial features, or someone distantly looking like him was the person who killed. So the agency said that it was Agent Lima who had killed. And Lucky was in jail and he kept on saying he's innocent, he has not killed him. So then it was very important as a journalist. I've always maintained the standard that you should only report, you should not judge. Let the readers decide. So I thought I will mention both the stories and I will let them decide towards the end that who is the killer, who killed. So in those days, I was watching I think, series, Lincoln Lawyer on Netflix. And, till that 8 episodes, I realized that the audience were not sure. So whether this is the killer or someone else is the killer, though everything pointed towards one person. So I thought maybe this kind of storytelling should be experimented with and see how my readers will react. So that's all that
Yes.
story happened.
Oh, great. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting choice, sir. Like, I usually, when I read books, I love to analyze how the story is told because the what is there, the material you have, but then how you choose to tell it is, I think, that makes the world of a difference. So I really love that because it really kept me guessing till the end. So, before we, sort of cover other aspects of the book, I just want to know, sir. So, let's say now this is just to understand this world, right? Now, let's say there are criminals, okay? Now, there's this agency who hires agents to sort of get rid of these criminals, right? So then like, for example, is it a secret is it a secret sort of project that happens and isn't like anybody supposed to know about it? Or for example, what I mean is, why was somebody even convicted? I mean, why was somebody arrested in the first place if the government anyway meant to do it? It's as simple as sort of understanding how does this world even work?
See, it's the way the secret agencies work is a classified operation. They don't want others to know how they have operated. So they are the people living in shadows and working in dark rooms. They will not be, known to everyone. So my whole thing is that all raw operations, whether it's happening in India or Pakistan or wherever, are secret, top secret, not known to common people. In this case, I think agencies goofed up a bit. They wanted Raju, Pargai, and Amit Arya to be killed, but somehow they didn't know that it's going to boomerang in such a way that one of their own will get arrested for this. So before they can move in and try to protect him or try to take some kind of preventive measures, this thing happened, and which is why Lucky kept on telling his people when they come to meet him in jail that get me out. I'm your guy, and why I'm like facing all this trouble. So somehow there was some mistake that happened at some place, and where they were not able to protect him, while the local police who thought that there is an evidence against him and he is accused and he has done a double murder, they were trying to implicate him in the murder. So it was a kind of tug of war between two agencies, the uniformed forces and the hidden forces, and Lucky became a victim in the middle.
That is really sad. I mean, I would say like he's sort of the like you said, nobody would have he wouldn't have even imagined that someone would be interested in his story. Like it's almost like you're being a puppet among different parties. But yeah, so another thing that I really found fascinating about this, especially this book, is that you've covered the Mumbai mafia over a long time, but this was a little different, right? Because this is about the mafia in Uttarakhand, and you've mentioned in your acknowledgements about this journalist Yesha Kotak and how she helped you with this investigation. She got facts. So I want to know, what was that process like, sir? How did she sort of get that information, and what kind of information sort of helped the book?
After you have got all the information, I needed some photographs of the people. I wanted some documents to be collected, and I wanted, some historical data about that town to be now done. Now, I was hard pressed for time, so if I would have gone, and since I was having too much of work on my plate and I could not extricate myself and go there, I had to look for a journalist. So some a journalist knows someone, since Yasha Gupta has been my protege. I have taught her when she was in Sumaya College. I She and my other colleague they were my students. So and I just have so much love for my students that I trust them with my life. This is something I thought that has to be done in 2 days, 3 days at max, and I don't know who to turn to. And secondly, Yasha Kotak was a very tender, delicate, fragile girl. So I didn't know whether I could send her to Haldwani and I could, send her to that kind of risky mission. But then I asked Lucky to watch out for her, and I kept on taking, calling her day in the morning, in the afternoon. I kept on telling her, you have to tell me your movements. So because it was 2, 3 day thing, she just quickly went there and covered a lot of ground. She traveled a lot, took photographs, got those documents, and she came back. So what we need to do is that we need to verify all the facts. There's something called due diligence, talking to people, cross-checking, also seeing the document, what is written there. So it was important that I have to do this. If I am not doing it, somebody trustworthy and credible can do it for me.
Correct, correct. And you've also worked with other writers in the past, like Jane Borges, with
Yeah, yeah.
Mafia Queens, and we
Yes.
had interviewed her. So yeah, I really like this collaborative process that you have, sir. So I really want to know, sir, like when you were interviewing Lucky Bisht, right? Was there any moment where you doubted the credibility of his story? I mean, in your forward, which is written by Mr. Neeraj Kumar, we also interviewed him for his book. He said that he doubted the credibility, and I want to know your view. Did you ever feel that?
As a journalist, I should always be skeptical of my subjects. I cannot be blindly accepting it. But at the same time, just because I'm skeptical of something, that good story should not be killed or ignored because of my skepticism. The story that I wrote for with Lucky, I found was a good story. It was backed by documents. There were facts. It was reported. There are people who are saying, so not just Lucky, even others are saying this. The only skeptical part in that story is if he was commissioned or Agent Lima was commissioned by R.A.W to kill those two gangsters. Because normally within the country, it's intelligence bureau who does counter espionage. R.A.W work beyond the borders. It was kept on saying that Agent Lima was working on the orders of R.A.W bosses, and Lucky kept on saying that I'm working for the agency. So the whole thing is, skeptical in this area. Only this area is grey. Whether Raw commissioned that killing or whether it was, some other animosity where these two gangsters were killed and then it was blamed on Raw. Whether Lucky was really Raw's man there, or there is Agent Lima who was actually Raw's operative who came and killed this. So only this is the grey area. But there were two gangsters who were killed. Lucky was put behind jail. He served in 11 prisons. He went through those harrowing experiences with the jail inmates and those jailers, and the way he survived, I mean, all those dangerous and risks. All these are factually documented, established facts. So there was no skepticism there, which is why I thought that someone has to raise this question. I thought, who will raise it? And I have never been, scared of people questioning the facts of my story. I said, let them question, let them ask. So, for example, in Dongri, Dubai, when I wrote that Surve was responsible for conspiring to kill Sabir Kaskar, Dawood Ibrahim's elder brother, there was one very controversial encounter specialist who came out and who wrote that Mania Surve was never in Sabir's killing, and what I've written is not correct, and blah blah blah. he even conducted a press conference and he was very livid about that fact. He also wrote in his book that I'm writing this book to correct. Now, incidentally, I have in my imprint that book is published, but I thought, okay, say that. I mean, he's not knowing that he's actually contradicting his own senior. So there's Mr. M.N. Singh, and Mr. M.N. Singh is the Joint Commissioner of Crime during the 1993 blast. And later on, he became the Police Commissioner of Mumbai in, I think, 2001. M.N. Singh, during his tenure as a Joint Commissioner, had compiled a treatise on Mumbai's organized crime. So when he had compiled a treatise, in that treatise, he had clearly, now this is a research work done by the entire crime branch. A lot of people were involved in it. It must be so many officers who must have collaborated and contributed to the writing of that treatise. So Mr. Singh had written in that treatise that Manya Surve was responsible for conspiring, planning, and killing Sabir Kaskar. So here is one guy who was a sub-inspector at that time. I don't know how much information he had and how limited his source information was. And here is M.N. Singh who's saying this. So I allow people to object. I allow them to differ. It's okay. And I don't mind because in the end we know that the truth is something. But here I thought that someone should raise a question about Lucky and the credibility of the whole thing. So I thought I should ask someone as senior as Mr. Neeraj Kumar, who's also a friend. So which is his skepticism didn't offend me. I thought, okay, he's doing his job. And as a journalist, I'll do my job. That's okay. We both can coexist.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're opening it up for discussion, for food for thought, right? It's not just who's right, who's wrong, and all of that. But sir, what I find really confusing is, why was it difficult to sort of get the right publisher for this book? Because you did mention that you pitched the book, and we also spoke to Sayantan Ghosh, who's teaching at our current publishing course, and he mentioned about this book. So could you please tell us a bit about that? Why was sort of this book hard to pitch, and finally, how did it find a home?
So what happened was that when I made the synopsis for this book, I was looking for a publisher. Now I will not name them, but I sent the synopsis to several of my publishers. There were some who wanted to publish it, but they were not willing to offer a decent advance on it. There were some who were not very happy with the way the story will unfold. They had their own ideas that no, it should not happen like this, and whether you are having this or you are going to. So I realized that either there is some kind of interference or there is some kind of counter-session for me to how the book, story will be unraveling or how it will be told, or there is some kind of lack of interest in terms of not putting in enough advance for the author who's going to spend so much of money in doing it. So I thought I have to only go with a publisher who first of all believes in me, the way I will tell the story, without trying to tell me that after 14 books, I should be told that no, your story should be like this and don't do this and take this approach. And so I thought that all those parameters were matched by Mr. Sayantan Ghosh. I wish I'd met him earlier because as a publisher, as an editor, he's fabulous and he gives me a lot of leeway and freedom to tell my story the way I want to, in the manner I want to present it. And I realized that Simon Schuster also does a lot of good publicity for the books, which I realized were lacking with other publishers. They don't put in that much muscle for promoting the book. So he meets all the conditions, preconditions, and yardstick that a good publisher should have.
Absolutely. I think it's like they say, the match is made in heaven. So very
yes, my special thanks to Mr. Ghosh.
Yeah, so very happy, sir, that this book is out there, and I would highly recommend it to all our listeners. So thank you so much for your time. So I had a lot of fun speaking to you. We've always wanted to interview on this podcast, and finally it's happened. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm really sorry for not talking to you earlier, but thank you. It was fantabulous.
No, it was a pleasure,
I found it
sir.
Cerebrally stimulating on so many levels. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, sir. And we're really looking forward to more of your books.
Yes. By the way, we are writing on the sequel of R.A.W. Hitman. So we are already working on that.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes,
awesome.
Mr. Ghosh will be publishing it.
Awesome. Yes. Can't wait, sir.
Thank you.